What's up, everyone? Welcome to the 61st episode of the Boundless Business Podcast. Today it's only me and Justine, but next week we got to have Larissa talk about the Taylor Swift concert because I know everyone's waiting for that.
Yes, we definitely need a Taylor recap. I know she's super excited to share it with someone, so we'll definitely have to hear from her.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Justine, what are we talking about today?
Today, we're going to talk about how landscapers and different home service industries can actually stay competitive in their industry, and some different things that they can do to maximize their profits and, yeah, just stay competitive and be the most successful that they can be. So we can start with conducting market research if you would like.
Absolutely. So the biggest thing about market research, especially when you're thinking about what it means to be a landscaper, right? Let's talk about that specifically. Most people think about landscapers as kind of blue collar, individuals that are really unprofessional and whatnot. But that can be further from the truth. The truth is that landscapers are really like the backbone of a lot of residential I would say the residential ecosystem because truth be told, like regardless if you're in Miami, Florida, or Arizona, or Cincinnati, ultimately what you're going to do if you're a homeowner is take care of your house, right? When you rent, it's a whole different mindset than when you own. So when you're thinking about a landscaper, they really bring your house to life because yes, you're going to spend a lot of time inside, but the outside, the front yard, the sides, they're all necessary for kind of like a best way of living. So when you're doing market research, especially competitive market research, you'll notice, especially going to like reviews, where the shortcomings are of your competitors. That might be that they don't, bill regularly, or they increase pricing without notice. They might never, follow up, or they might skip days. Communication tends to be one of the biggest ones that most of these landscapers are missing. Now, there's also good, consumer market research that you can do. You can see raving reviews of, oh, individuals doing this, and this that we love, right? They always come with a smile. They're always dressed professionally, and pretty quickly you can see what to do and what not to do. Um, I bet, Justine, I bet if you think back, the last 20 and some years, you can probably think about like a time where it might be a landscaper, might not have been, where they did something that instantly made you say, "Oh, I love this person, and I'll continue working with them." And the ones that like you're like, "Oh, because you did this, I will never work with you again." Do you have any examples that come top of mind?
No super specific example, but just like, yeah, like you said, communication, being super open about, what the process looks like and what's actually happening, what the service provider is doing for you, and like what is the actual goal that they're working towards. Just making sure that the customer understands what is going on, I think is super important in building trust and making it super valuable.
Absolutely. And I mean, landscapers are in the service-based business, which means that you're probably dealing with a decision maker every time you're there. And even if they're not at the house, let's say you do maintenance or you're installing turf, you are talking to the decision maker, which you want to value that relationship, build that trust, because that could be a well of value for you, both in referrals, testimonials, continued work, support, um, potential, employees or investors. Like, you need to prioritize these relationships, and that's what most people don't think about when they go into landscaping. Is like the customer isn't always right, but the customer communication and how you build that relationship is important. And that kind of goes into our next part, which is the identifying unique selling points. Right? We talked about using competitor analysis to say, oh, what to do and what not to do. An example could be, let's say that you have a business, landscaping turf install business in Austin, and maybe you have a very specific type of turf that you like to use. There might be an educational component in there, or that your turf doesn't fade in the sun or something like that. There's a very clear, unique selling point that you can actually go to the market with, because maybe when you're doing research, you're saying, oh, everyone's worrying about color fade or the smell of the turf, with pets. if you have a unique proposition and selling point, you want to confirm that the market actually has that problem, because you don't want to advertise in something that doesn't really matter. Because we've all seen things from like, oh, I guess that's cool, you know. Like I think about that every time Apple has a new phone. They're like, oh, this camera is blah 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 blah. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Does it still take pictures? And is it probably a little better? Yeah, that's great. Fine. You know, you don't have to go into the mechanics and features behind it. So, uh, finding that unique selling point, again, market research is the best to do it, but also, and this is what most people don't prioritize, is actually having conversations with their clients and customers, getting feedback. Oh, we love when you do this. Oh, we, you know, found you on a Facebook ad or word of mouth or in this newspaper. All that gives you unique selling points, and like a long laundry list of things that you can then attack the market with. Justine, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add with unique selling points, especially from like a content point of view, you know?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, make those unique selling points known. Like, you want your audience to remember when they're thinking about, purchasing artificial turf. Like, you want to be top of mind because of your unique selling points. So you want to really drill that into your audience and make them know about your unique offering.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what's next?
Our next point is adapting to changing customer needs and preferences.
This is why you want to really focus on the steps before this, because you don't want to be caught doing something for a year, 5 years, 10 years that doesn't work anymore. And we can get very specific with advertising and marketing of like, oh, you're still advertising maybe in the yellow pages, but your cost to acquire customers now like $1,000 versus like, I don't know, couple $100 somewhere else. That could happen, but we're talking more changing customer desires and maybe outcomes. So, for instance, a couple years ago, uh, not above ground, but like built-in trampolines were really, really big in Arizona. Like everyone had to have one. Now, not so much, right? So if you're still advertising like, trampolines and all that, you might have missed the wave with it, right? So another great example is like if you go and try and sell water beds nowadays, most people don't want water beds, right? And that's like pulling something in from a different industry altogether. Now, can things come back in this style? Absolutely. But that's why you have to have your pulse on the market and like see what competition is doing, but also like start understanding what your clients want. Because could you have predicted that vinyl would outsell CDs in 2023? There might have been indicators, but like if you're not watching it, you don't want to be caught with your metaphorical pants down. And I realized, oh, like my competition's already far ahead, of the playing field.
Yeah, definitely. One thing I'll add to that is also just asking your customers, like, what could we have changed or improved on our services so that in the future you can make those better, and really just getting that feedback from your customers.
That's actually really good. Let's talk about that for a second, because truth be told, like you're not going to get it right every single time. I think for me, thinking back at it, like my parents just repainted their house, and the color was just a little bit off what they wanted, right? So, in that feedback they could have given is like, oh, it was lighter when we applied it, but it was darker when it dried, and they wanted the lighter one. So maybe something that you could do is like, come out the day before, paint a little bit of it, and wait, and then say, oh, this is what it is. Because the fact that you cared so much, because painting your house is a couple $1,000s, right? It's not like the cheapest things. So we just want to make sure that we're prioritizing that, and keeping that kind of line of communication open. So even if like someone's super happy, pressed in to see if there's any like literally anything you could have done better. And if you can't, keep pressing further, because there's always something that you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Our next little point here is offer competitive pricing. And we are going to have a full podcast about pricing next week, but we can kind of talk about it, do a little teaser for it here.
Yeah, so everyone thinks that like the best way to win is to discount, and that's actually not the fact because discounts is only one tool in your toolkit. So we're talking about this a lot more next week, but there are multiple ways that you can actually like provide more value and charge a premium and still be a better position than your competition. So come watch next week because really like increasing like value without discounting, or even discounting but like upselling, like there's so many ways of doing that. So definitely come back next week. Um, anything else, Justine, that you want to like talk about, like in regards to like anything we talked about? Because this is like pretty simple, but you
Mhm.
need sometimes need like reminders, you know?
Right. I mean, that's all the kind of points I had. Uh, Definitely pricing. Definitely come back for that episode
Oh yeah,
because it will be packed full of information for sure.
it's gonna be
um,
really.
yeah. Anything else you want to add, Nico, before we end it off?
No, the biggest thing here is like do your research and continue to do your research. Like it doesn't stop once, and it shouldn't be like you don't have to do it daily or weekly, but definitely like quarterly, or at least bi-quarterly, so that you can really focus on building that relationship, and just continuing to one up your competition. So thank you guys so much for listening. Have such a beautiful rest of your day. As always, it's amazing to have you guys listen to us. And if you have any questions, email me at nico@boundlessmedia.com. Justine, thank you for great questions, and we'll see you guys next week. Peace.